The waters around Utah's Antelope Island are a refuge for more than 10 million migratory birds every year. Countless residents call the island's grasslands home. More than 200 species of birds rely on the Great Salt Lake, traveling from as far as southern Chile and the Siberian tundra. They come to feast on the brine shrimp and brine flies that have adapted to the lake's extreme salt levels. Every spring, meltwater runs down from the mountains surrounding Salt Lake City and breathes life into the Great Salt Lake. Many of these congregations around Antelope Island are the largest of their species anywhere on Earth. They've come a long way to reach this Great Salt Lake.
Imagine taking a road trip for 55 straight hours, and when you finally get to your destination, you open the car door and stand up, and your pants fall down because you lose 40% of your body weight in the trip there. So that's typical with some of these migratory birds that will literally drop down completely exhausted, ready to rest and refuel themselves, and try and gain that weight back by eating the critters of the Great Salt Lake, the brine shrimp and the brine flies that make up the complicated saline ecosystem of the Great Salt Lake.
The Great Salt Lake is this crucial oasis for them to rest and regain their strength before heading out on the rest of their journey. It's the largest saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere, but it's been shrinking year after year.
When you walk, you should kick up this incredible plume of brine flies, and they're all gone. I've never seen this before. The lake will lose, on average, about 2 or 2.5 feet of elevation every summer during the evaporation phase. And then the mountains collect the snow, and the runoff will raise the level of the lake during the spring. 2 years ago, however, the lake only rose 6 inches. You know, if we have 100% normal snowpack, then the lake is going to shrink every year. We actually have to have 130% of normal snowpack, which is clearly not sustainable. The most important thing to understand about the shrinking of the Great Salt Lake is that it's not being caused by climate change. It's not even being caused by the current mega drought. The root cause is the fact that we divert too much water before it reaches the Great Salt Lake. There are water-intensive crops like alfalfa that are very heavily grown here, and whether or not that's the best choice for using our limited water supply is something that we at least need to have a conversation about.
The delicate balance between summer evaporation and winter snowmelt doesn't just maintain lake levels. The yearly infusions of fresh water ensure that the lake's salt levels remain stable. But as Utah's population and economy have grown, less water has made it to the lake each spring. And as with all balances in nature, when a thumb is on one side of the scale, something has to give.
We're fast approaching the salinity tipping point where the southern part of the lake becomes so saline that the base of the food chain, the brine shrimp and the brine flies, even have a hard time surviving. And once those brine shrimp and those brine flies start to die off, then the millions of birds that visit this area will get here and the pantry will be bare. And as a result, these millions of birds are likely to starve to death on the shores of this Great Salt Lake.
A shrinking lake isn't just bad for the birds. As it recedes, Salt Lake City will encounter more and more toxic dust storms. The city's very future is at stake.
So the area that we're standing in right here would have been underwater 10 years ago. Farmington Bay is now dry. If we come down and just look at it, we essentially just have a relatively shallow crust overlying the sand and the silt and the clay that's underneath. My research has also discovered that the dust has high concentrations of arsenic, which is a carcinogen and a toxic heavy metal. Long-term exposure to arsenic from the dust could lead to increases in certain types of cancer, such as lung cancer, skin cancer, and bladder cancer. The longer the lake bed is exposed, the larger the surface area out here that will actually act as a dust source. So we do expect the dust storms to become more frequent and to become more severe over time, the longer that the lake remains low.
As the drought goes on, the last freshwater springs on the lake have run dry, putting the wildlife on Antelope Island at risk. Once vibrant and green, grasslands are now barren and dusty. The water keeping these bison alive now arrives by helicopter. Still, some people want to take more.
The Bear River provides 60% of the surface water flowing into the Great Salt Lake every single year, and the proposed diversion of the Bear would be 40% of that total. So it would be a massive change to the water flowing into the Great Salt Lake and would dry up tens of thousands, perhaps 100,000 acres of shoreline wetlands around the perimeter of the lake. Now, we still have a big fight ahead of us. We only killed 2 of the dam sites. But the trick to winning in the conservation sector is just having the courage and the time and the willingness to fight.
The reason why I'm optimistic about the future of the lake is that the root cause is within our control to change. We got into this mess because we didn't value water. We can get ourselves out of this by starting to value, conserve, and take care of the limited water supply that we actually have.
A future of dust isn't inevitable. But if the lake disappears, the loss will be felt across the Americas. There's still time to change the fate of this great ecosystem. But there's work to be done.
I will feel really happy if all of my research in 20 years is ignored because everything's underwater. I'll be just fine with that.